Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today, I want to talk about something that people say all the time, and that is, boy, Democratic presidents sure are good for the Second Amendment because they drive up gun sales. Now, I know that most people say this kind of facetiously. They're just saying it kind of as a joke. But some people actually believe it. They actually believe that, wow, Second Amendment's actually better now because gun sales are up, blah, blah, blah. Well, I just want to remind people out there so that people don't get the wrong idea and start thinking that, hey, maybe we should vote for a Democrat to spur gun sales. Democratic presidents are not good for the Second Amendment. They're good for the gun industry, but what's good for industry isn't always what's best for citizens. Democratic presidents are great for driving up fear and driving up anger, which increases sales, which is good for the gun industry, but it's really not good overall for the gun community. Because fear and anger and those people that like to spread it and exploit it, etc., to drive up sales, what it does is it usually causes somebody to do something stupid, and then the left has more reason to pass more gun laws. So it's very seldom good for the Second Amendment. It's just good for business. And now I know that's what a lot of gun channels out there care about is business. We've heard them say so much. So that's just something I want to remind people of. Democratic presidents are not good for gun business or for the gun rights. Of course, sadly, neither are Republican presidents really. I mean, what have they done for us in any recent time? And some of the most invasive and overreaching gun laws ever passed have been done so under Republicans. So Republicans are no friends to guns either. Unfortunately, Democrats will take your guns just to appease their base. And Republicans will do nothing for you because they don't want you to have guns either, because neither Democrats or Republicans want to lose their privileged status. The politicians don't want to lose their privileged status and their power to an armed populace. So neither side is good for gun rights. It's just that Democrats are far better for gun sales and gun business because they say stuff and do stuff that makes people in the gun community panic or get angry. And that's not. And some people say, well, but that's not always true because look how good Trump was for gun sales. Well, Trump was not good for gun sales. Period. People have a short memory. It wasn't Trump that caused what we're having now, all the shortages and the mass buyings, etc. It was two things. It was social unrest and the pandemic. That's what drove up violence. Drove up gun sales, not violence. The civil unrest drove up violence, and that drove up gun sales because people sitting back in their houses were seeing all this violence on TV, and they were like, I better get a gun, which common sense. They finally had some common sense pop into their head there for them. But that under Trump, you remember when Trump got elected, we had what was called the Trump slump. Remember, gun sales were, and so were ammo sales and everything else. That's why we called it the Trump slump. It wasn't until the civil unrest and the pandemic that sales started skyrocketing again, and we find ourselves in the situation we're in now. Which is one of the reasons I don't like fear and panic, because it causes mass buying, it causes shortages, and a lot of it right now is because of the pandemic, and there's just nothing we could have done, and because there's more gun buyers, etc. I think we've all discussed why there's such shortages now. But it wasn't because of Trump, it was because of those things. Historically, Democratic presidents just sell more guns than Republicans do. So Democrats are better for the gun industry. They're just not better for our rights. And I'm afraid when some people point out, even jokingly, how good Democratic presidents are for gun sales, that some people might see that as saying, well, hey, they galvanize the gun community, which they do to an extent, and that causes good things. No, historically, it's bad things. It's just good for sales. So I don't want people thinking that just so they can justify, well, I'll vote Democrat because this is what's going to hurt. It still does hurt. I just want people to know that. I just want people to know Democrats are not better for gun rights. Unfortunately, Republicans aren't really much better for gun rights either. But Democrats are definitely better for gun sales. But I don't know about you, but what I care about in this country is our freedoms and our constitutional rights. I don't care if there's 300 boutique AR makers making a fortune because of artificial demand. What I care about is we maintain our rights. And in this country, as of right now, unfortunately, neither political party is good for that, but the Democrats are definitely the greater of the two evils. All right, with that being said, I want to move on today, and I want to answer a piece of viewer mail. I got a question from a viewer the other day that asked me, what is the logic behind the rule saying that you can't go to another state and buy a handgun? If you can legally buy and own a firearm in your home state, why can't you go to another state and do it? Well, first off, I want to point out a real flaw in your question there, and that is saying, what is the logic behind? Most gun laws aren't based on logic. They're based on fear. They're based on prejudice. They're based on control. Logic is not their strong suit. But there is one little aspect behind that gun owners like to tout when they say you shouldn't be able to buy a gun in another state. That's because some states have very restrictive gun laws, and these states are very powerful states like New York, New Jersey, California. And because they don't want their citizens who are being completely put upon by the state, being infringed greatly upon by the state, their Second Amendment rights, they don't want them to be able to go next door to another state and exercise their constitutional rights. So they don't want them to be able to go to another state, buy a gun, bring it home. And if you'll pay attention, states like Illinois, New York, they always blame, all of our gun violence problems are because of Virginia or Ohio or Kentucky. It's not because of us, which is basically them saying, well, criminals are going places and getting guns in ways that they shouldn't get them and bringing them places they shouldn't have them and doing things they shouldn't have do with them. And it seems like no amount of gun laws stop that. But if they said that, they would be basically shooting themselves in the foot. So they maintain this whole notion. They try to have it both ways. They blame all their gun violence on people buying guns in other states, even though it's illegal, showing that the laws don't work. But they want the laws in place because they want to control their own population. And it's hard to oppress your population if they can go next door and get what they need to exercise their rights. It's like having a Weight Watchers studio between a donut shop and an ice cream place. You know, a little hard to keep people slim when there's stuff on both sides. But of course, everyone has a right to eat donuts. Everyone has a right to eat ice cream. And I think everyone has a right to own a gun. And California, unfortunately, New York, unfortunately, Illinois, New Jersey, they don't agree with those constitutional rights. So they want to be able to infringe upon their citizens, and they don't want them to be able to go get a taste of freedom somewhere else. So that's the reasons the law exists. Is it logical? No, it isn't, because if you're saying all your gun crime is based on guns coming in from other states, well, then obviously the laws don't stop criminals from doing bad things. And you'd have to admit that if you actually addressed the issue. But that's why you can't buy guns across state lines. It's all about control. It's all about preventing you from exercising your rights and not getting a taste of freedom in a more free state. And it's these states, these repressive states, have a lot of power nationally. So that's why that exists. There's no logical reason behind it. It's all about control. All right, everybody, I want to end the show today with our viewer EDC of the day. And today we have Mike W. And Mike W. is carrying his Smith & Wesson Model 66 with its Harriet grips in a gold and Goodrich holster on a Milt Sparks belt. Now, I chose Mike today for two different reasons. One, I really like his setup, like the gun, love those grips, and also for another very specific reason. When I first saw Mike's picture, I thought, hey, he's holding a Shar-Pei puppy while he takes a picture of his gun belt. But turns out that's not a Shar-Pei puppy, that's his elbow. Mike is 75 years old. Mike's an old dude, but he's still carrying a .357 Magnum revolver, showing old dudes can still take care of themselves. And I wanted to show it because of his age here to show that even though he's older, he's still taking his self-defense seriously. He's taking defense of himself and his family, his home, very seriously. And a lot of people think once you get to a certain age, it's like, I just can't be bothered anymore. I think it's more important than ever, because if Mike's anything like me, and like I know I'll be at that age, fighting and running are no longer as viable options as they used to be. So having something like this for self-defense is even more important. Now, having a .357 Magnum like that, kudos to him to be able to handle that recoil. I might have problems with that myself at that age. I'm having problems with it now because of my arthritis. In fact, if I was that old and someone came at me and I know I had a .387 Magnum revolver, I might have to find out first, like, hey, do you plan on physically harming me or killing me, or are you just going to rape me? Because if you're going to rape me, I might just be like, all right, you got 15 minutes, I got places to be. I don't want to have to deal with the recoil of this handgun. But if they're going to physically harm me, I'll take my chances, fire the gun. But that's one of the reasons I mainly wanted to show this today, because Mike, old dude, still out there carrying. And I think that is an inspiration to everyone out there, and a reminder that as you get older, your gun becomes more important, not less important. So that's our viewer EDC of the day, Mike W. with his Smith & Wesson Model 66. All right, everybody, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you come back again tomorrow. Until then, I just want to sign off by saying, as far as the state of the world today is concerned, it is what it is. It ain't that bad, but it could be better. And in the future, if we continue to ignore the fear mongers and the profiteers that want to manipulate us and profit off of us and keep level heads about us, what things will be in the very near future, for those of us that love freedom and the Second Amendment, things are going to be a lot better.